Hey guys, it's Emily, the Controversial Mom, and I want to talk a little bit about transparency. I know that seems like a wild and crazy thing for me to want to talk about, but transparency has somehow turned into a controversial thing, which makes it right in line for me to talk about. But transparency is really kind of the topic that came up at church this past Sunday. Before I get into the details of that, let me give a little bit of kind of a backstory on my church life. I have been churchless for really and truly what's been probably close to 2 years now. I've talked a little bit about before kind of the issues that I have had with the church, the silence of the church specifically, how they pretty much just refuse to take on pretty much all things cultural and government related these days. And I certainly am not a fan of that. I think we need to be speaking from the pulpit on pretty much everything. But most churches will not do that. They're very silent and very afraid to do that. But over the past 2 years, I have searched for churches all over Huntsville, Madison area, trying to find one that really was home, that felt the same way that I did and was willing to do a lot of the things that I do in terms of speaking out. So I finally found that church several months ago, probably maybe 6 months ago, and it has been the most rewarding thing in my life recently, and that's saying a lot because I have an amazing life and God has blessed me tremendously. But finding a home church has been really and truly just the icing on the cake for everything that I deal with. So if you're in the Huntsville, Madison area, let me take a moment to say if you're looking for a church, you need to come check out Movement Church in Madison. It's amazing. It has new leadership, new pastors on pretty much everything. And they're great. So very non-traditional, let me just say, very non-traditional, but that's what I love about it because they're not just the cookie cutter church that we all see as we're driving around. So if you're looking for a place to call home, please come check out Movement Church. I hope that you will love it as much as I do. So that's my church spill. You're invited. Please come. But this past Sunday, the sermon was really and truly about temptation. But it kind of had a couple of curveballs in there that, well, it just made it super interesting. But Pastor Seth, the lead pastor, talked about temptation and really, we live in a fallen society, so we're all tempted. And when we're tempted to do things that are not in line with God's will, we tend to be ashamed of them and embarrassed, and we tuck them away and we hide them in a very dark closet where we think no one will ever know. And over time, those temptations grow and they grow until the point that they're just overwhelming and they take over our lives and destroy things. We've all been there. We've all had those moments. It's all impacted all of us in some shape, form, or fashion. But what he talked about in the sermon was the need to bring those things out of the closet and into the light, and let light be the disinfectant. Air those things with the people close to you, your family. Talk to God and ask for forgiveness. And that is the only way to truly deal with the things that we are embarrassed about or ashamed of and we tuck in the closet. Bring it out into the light. Let the light be the disinfectant. So that sermon's been on my mind a lot this week, and I try to take what happens at church and really apply it in my everyday life and all the things going on around me. And of course, y'all know I live in the world of politics. So of course I start applying this to the world of politics, and I really just started thinking through, that's really what we're seeing happening in our government right now, right? Like I talked about the Doge last week, and it's really a hot topic just in general conversation about government waste. So again, it was that same thing, like with the Doge. The Doge is kind of the light in shining a light on all the things, all the corruption, all the waste that's happening in our government. And that's a really cool thing, again, to be able to witness in life. The shining of the light on all of these things, the bringing it out into the public square for people to talk about and know what's going on. The same thing with Kash Patel. That's been all the news this week, is confirming Kash Patel as the new FBI director. And there's so many people that are terrified of Kash becoming the new FBI director because what's he going to do and all of this. And of course, people on the right seeing him as, airing all of this stuff in public, shining a light on all the things that have been happening that the public just doesn't know about, but should know about. So again, bringing that sermon into real world, day-to-day life, that's just how I keep seeing it as, well, Cash and the Trump administration are just being the light. They're really bringing things to the forefront for people to be aware of. So again, fascinating, love it. But then I started thinking a little bit more of, how does this hit home here in Alabama? What can we be doing to shine the light, to really air all of these things so that we can start fixing them? We can start getting things in line in our state. And of course, y'all know me, I am not a fan of the School Counseling Association. I'm not a fan of counseling in schools at all. Lots of things out there that I'm really not supportive of, that I see as like my job to shine the light on those. If you've ever heard me talk about my role with Moms for Liberty, you know that I have said it multiple times. I will continue to say it. I feel like God led me to Moms for Liberty to be a light for so many things that are happening in our schools that parents just don't know about. I say schools, really what I mean is anything and everything that's attacking parental rights, whether it's the doctor's office, the library, schools, whatever it may be. I deal a lot with schools because our kids are there 8 hours a day. So I say schools, I really mean all things that are attacking parental rights. But I feel like God called me to Moms for Liberty for a very specific purpose, and that is to shine the light on all these things that are happening that are attacking parental rights and then impacting kids in a negative way and pulling kids away from what God wants for them. So I take that role really seriously because I do think that God called me to that. It's not just something that I like to do in my spare time. It's truly a mission that He laid on my heart. So that's really how I approach a lot of the things that I do with Moms for Liberty. And that's kind of where all of this comes together is I feel like God called me to this mission to be the light, to bring everything out into the open so that light can be the disinfectant and we can start cleaning up things in our state. And that kind of happened this week. I am not a fan of the American School Counseling Association. I have said that multiple times and I will keep saying it. They are evil. They push horrible, radical ideas onto our children, whether it is intentionally or not, directly or indirectly. They push really bad things onto our kids. So I used my voice that God has given me and the platform that He has given me to really shine a light on that this week. For anyone that does not know, last Friday on Valentine's Day, the acting assistant secretary of education, and I'm probably not getting the title right. It's the guy that's temporarily leading the OCR, Office of Civil Rights. So all the things that deal with like Title IX and the fair treatment of women and men and girls and boys and all of that. He put out a letter, it's called a Dear Colleague letter, that told every public school in the country, you have 14 days to get rid of programs related to DEI. And it spelled everything out into detail. I'm not going to go through that right now. Just go Google it. It's easy to find. But in the letter, it says you have 14 days to get rid of DEI. So that's a really short timeline to get anything done, especially when you're dealing with the government. It probably takes them 14 days to write a letter, to be honest with you. And I say that as someone who works within the Department of Defense, so I can't say it because I've actually lived that out. But nonetheless, they had 14 days to get rid of DEI programs. They really have till the end of February to get it done. So I used this opportunity and this platform to call attention to it, to shine a light on, hey, here is a massive issue in the state of Alabama. The American School Counseling Association has it's called a national framework that basically outlines how school counselors should perform in schools and what they should be teaching kids. Alabama used this framework to develop their state level guidebooks, kind of what they call it, back in 2003. This sucker's old, 20-something years old. They've not touched it. All but one of the current sitting school board members were not even on the board when they approved this. That's how old it is. But this document, the principles behind it and the organization behind it are in direct conflict with this Dear Colleague letter that came out. So that means that in 14 days, at this point, not even 14 days, the Alabama Department of Education has to get rid of the current program, cut off full association with the American School Counseling Association, rewrite this new program, approve it, and implement it. that is not happening. Like, no way is that happening. It's not even practical to think that they could do that. It's been 20 years since they did the first one. They're not getting this done in 14 days. Everybody knows that. But the good news in all of that is that they're going to fix it. So I wrote an op-ed, I guess it was this week actually, highlighting all of these issues with the American School Counseling Association, this Alabama guidebook, and how it's all in direct conflict with the directives that are coming from the president and this Dear Colleague letter. And I basically brought it into the public square and said, here are the issues. And I outlined 3 particular things that the ASCA pushes that are now putting our public schools in jeopardy of losing federal funding because it's all DEI programming. So I put the light on it. That's what God called me to do. He put me in this position with Moms for Liberty to shine the light, and that is what I did. And I'm sure I made a lot of people mad in the process, but that's okay, because when you're controversial, that just is part of the territory. So I showed the light on it, and I said, here are the issues. The public needs to know what's happening. And I got a call yesterday afternoon that the State Board of Education is now rewriting this guidebook. After 20-something years, they are finally rewriting it, and they're attempting to get compliant with the directives of the federal government, whether it's the executive order or the Dear Colleague letter. But the point is, at the end of the day, they're changing it, and that is amazing for our state because it protects our kids. It gets this crazy DEI indoctrination out of our schools. This is a huge, huge, huge win for all of us that are fighting to protect our kids. So I am really glad that God put this in front of me, because it's great to see all the efforts that we've all been working on for so long and shining the light, bringing things to the forefront, putting them in the public square, and having these open discussions. We're finally getting traction with cleaning some of this up, and it is just amazing to be a part of. So I thank everyone out there that is fighting this battle. There are so many of you that really and truly, we just don't even know that you're doing it, but you're asking questions at your kid's school. You're talking to your kids about stuff. You're getting involved in, whether it's church or different organizations, you're getting involved and you're being a part of a movement that really and truly is moving the needle and helping to protect our kids. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for all that you do in helping us have these impacts and really and truly make a difference in our state. So thank you. If you have questions on any of the things that I've talked about, as always, please feel free to shoot me an email. I love to talk about this stuff, so I can do it all day long. But yeah, go be a light into the world. Bring things out into the public square and have a public conversation on it. It is controversial. As always, it is controversial. But I promise you the impacts will be far-reaching, and you will love the results. See you next time.